going on, everybody? This is the Feed to Embiid. I am your host, Austin Krell, along with my long tenured co-host, Brock. Brock, I see now I'm the one who has the haircut, so I guess you're next.
Yeah, I'm coming up shortly. I have a social event, let's say, to attend in a couple of days, maybe a week or two. So I might have to show up with a fresh cut, but we'll see what
Okay.
happens.
Okay, I like it. I like it. So let's start off with this. Let's air some grievances. I guess we got a lot of, I presume, Eagles fans in attendance for this show tonight. So why don't we start off with airing some grievances? The Eagles lose. No, they don't lose. They simply tie. They tie the game.
Which might be worse. I mean, say what you want, but a tie might be worse than a loss, honestly.
Right. I'll tell you this. I have never in my life, I guess, laughed at the misfortune of a team that I spent my childhood rooting for.
Mm-hmm.
But when I heard what the penalty was on what the hell is the guy's name? Matt Pryor.
Mm-hmm.
When I see the penalty and realize what it is, and I see them moving backwards, I'm like, wait a second, no way that just happened. And I realize it's going to take them outside of field goal range.
And
I started laughing my rear end off. I mean, I was laughing so hard, and that because it was like, okay, quite literally everything that could go wrong did go wrong in that game. Like that is what a bad team does. And it isn't like, oh, they're injured, oh, they're off to a slow start, like whatever, they didn't have a preseason. No. They make horrendous mistakes. They beat themselves in the foot. They shoot themselves in the foot every time they play. Literally every time they play. And the Phillies just lost, so they are 28-32.
Mm-hmm.
And they finished the season. They will miss the playoffs for a 9th consecutive year. I really do hope that Matt Klentak is like the browsing history on his internet on the way home from the from Tampa Bay. I hope it's all Glassdoor. Just Glassdoor job postings, because he should not have a job by the time they land in Philly. Now, I think, and I'm happy now that I'm older. I'm 24. Happy now that I'm 24. When I was younger, I didn't know, especially when I first got into sports. Like the teams in the city were all like kind of garbage. Like I was lucky to get into sports when the Phillies, like the year the Phillies won the World Series, I was into sports. Like that was my first time ever like really caring about sports. And that was my so it was like, I guess, a cold introduction, because like no, it was a warm introduction, but I got exposed to winning right off the top. So I didn't know how to handle losing. And then right after that, the Sixers hire Eddie Jordan, go 27-55. Eagles are mediocre. So like when I was younger, I didn't really know how to mask or like how to like, I guess, handle losing across the board in all sports. Like I always had, like for the first 5 years of my enjoyment of sports, the Phillies were always like in contention for World Series championships. So I didn't really know what it was like to be bad across the board. And then the Sixers start tanking. The Phillies go down the tubes as soon as they lose NLDS. Eagles were like irrelevant, but like I guess alive in some respects. Now, I think we've kind of returned to this point where like, okay, this sucks across the board. Like now that I cover the Sixers and I'm actually going to be in the building hopefully next season, I kind of have this disconnection to the franchise and that my emotions are out of it. I try to be an objective journalist and covering
You
the
should
team.
be all the time. Yeah, with that any journalism, right?
Right. And I mean, like they say, like, you can't compromise your your journalistic integrity. You can't do that. And then, like you see people like Kevin Nagandi, obvious Philly fan.
Mm-hmm.
What's her name?
Temperament too.
Yeah. Nicole Briscoe, who's the
Yep.
anchor for SportsCenter. She's a Cubs fan, like diehard Cubs fan. So like you can't actually mask it, even if you try. You're supposed to be unbiased, but there's a difference between, like, you can be a fan and be human. You just can't be like my team overall and ignore everything else, right? Like you that's how you get that, like you become uncredible. But I think we've sort of fallen into this weird feeling where like everything was like a good 2 years ago, and now it's like Eagles are horrible, like atrocious. That was pathetic today. The Sixers are in like a no man's land territory where they are like palatable, but they're ultimately an undependable team. The Phillies are a joke. That was a joke of a season. And the Flyers, as Bryant Baker, our CEO, says, "Hey, Austin, the Philly sports still have the Flyers." They do. I wasn't going to cut the Flyers. There's a reason I include them in the conversation, because they're actually a team that's good. But it's weird now where we're kind of in this, like, I guess, this divot in the timeline where everything kind of sucks. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think it's crazy that Philadelphia sports fans like you have given up hope so easily. I do agree that those 2 years ago do seem like a really long time ago with everything that's happened. And Austin, being a Philadelphia 76ers fan, it's not easy. I really give everybody that's a fan of the Sixers credit, because in the past 2 years, maybe 3, 4, look at what you've had to deal with, right? You've got the entire Colangelo era, which is hilarious, the burners and their collars and all the memes that came from that. Have the Markelle Fultz era, which to this day is still an enigma to me. I don't know what happened to his shoulder or him personally with the team. You have everything with the process and the rebuild, all of the players associated with it. You have the Sam Hinkie era, and Sam Hinkie forced out apparently by Adam Silver. So that's also part of the Sixers' recent history. And it's just a laundry list of things that happen with the Sixers that make you scratch your head. So as a Sixers fan, I would understand why people are disappointed, but they have a really good young core and an opportunity to turn things around. I'm keeping my optimism high with the Sixers. With Philadelphia, it's really a shame that you open your pockets up, you make that signing, and you take a Bryce Harper contract past 10 years, you go 13, you give him everything in the world he could want. You give him the best catcher in baseball, and you really build a formidable pitching staff, 1 through 3 at least. And the bullpen is one of the worst bullpens in Major League Baseball history. And I saw a graphic on the MLB Network which compared Joe DiMaggio's career stats to the Philadelphia bullpen and what they were surrendering. And hitters against Philadelphia's bullpen were essentially posting Joe DiMaggio's career stats against their bullpen. That's how bad it was. So you waste the first 2 years of Bryce Harper's contract. And to make matters worse, JT Realmuto, the most productive catcher in baseball, without a doubt, is now, I mean, he's gonna field offers from teams like the Mets, probably the Yankees, if the Yankees are willing to spend money. But there's teams around baseball that are going to open their wallets up and provide this guy with a max offer, right? And Philadelphia may have let that opportunity pass. He may be bitter about what Philadelphia has done and not extending him earlier. Yeah. And at the tail end of that, you give away Sixto Sanchez. So at the time, it may be worth it if your window is win now and if you can extend JT. But if JT walks and the return was Sixto turns into a dominant pitcher, then it's going to be a tough look for Philadelphia. So I think Matt Klentek is next up on the hot seat, even though he should have been. But there's guys across the board for Philadelphia that are apparently on the hot seat right now. Doug Peterson, allegedly on the hot seat. You got everybody in the Sixers front office on the hot seat, even though they're apparently now using Elton Brand as their puppet. There have been a lot of rumblings in the past 2 weeks in Philadelphia with the management and the organization. So Philadelphia, I think they definitely hit a divot, but my optimism is still high for these teams. They've got good cores.
Let me ask you this: do you buy like everyone's like they're killing Carson right now, and so do you buy that he's a bad quarterback? Because now it's not even as if Carson's is like you can't say he doesn't have weapons. He's missing easy throws now, and he's sitting way too long in the pocket sometimes. He's overthinking everything. Like I genuinely don't think he's a good quarterback at this point in time.
Well, I'm probably not the right person to ask this question because I've never really been a fan of Carson Wentz.
That's right. That's right. You never were.
My problem has never really been Carson Wentz's talent. It's more of the intangibles. Like I've heard things from maybe coaches on the staff that surfaced in articles a year or two later. Maybe just anecdotes.
Oh, you got some sources.
No, not my sources. I don't have any sources. I'm talking about like consuming articles that were written and they had sources in the articles that were from players or coaches. I think in football, body language is really important. Being a leader is really important, especially at that position, at the quarterback position. And you get scapegoated. The coach and the quarterback are the two things that get scapegoated for every loss. So in Carson Wentz's young career, I didn't see similar leadership that I saw in maybe Lamar Jackson or maybe in Russell Wilson or maybe Andrew Luck, for example. And I thought the talent was most definitely there, but people were treating Carson Wentz in Philadelphia like he was the second coming of Jesus, right? Yeah. And that might not be the right analogy to use because Carson Wentz
might even be the first coming.
Yeah. But so to me, I just never saw that. And I understand he led Philadelphia to what became their Super Bowl season, but there just wasn't a large enough body of work for me to call Carson Wentz elite yet. And I'm that same way with every athlete. I try to be as fair as I can. And it just seems like in the recent year or two, people have been comparing him to Deshaun Watson and saying there's no comparison there at all. Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than him.
Let's take it easy. He's not even on the same planet as Dak right now.
Well, I wouldn't say that much. I don't think Dak's that great of a quarterback either. But it's like Carson Wentz went from everybody was discussing him and Nick Foles and is Carson Wentz elite yet? And it went from that to comparing him to Josh Allen and he's better than Big Ben and he should be a top 10 quarterback. And I'm thinking, where did any of this come from? 2 years ago, I got to hear that he got hurt. Now a year after, he's got no receivers. Although he's got no receivers, he's got the best O-line in football. Guy goes down. Everybody says, oh, the O-line sucks. People are just deferring blame for the previous 2-3 years. And it's like now he's finally facing this same scrutiny that maybe like Ben Simmons has to face in Philadelphia. And from what I saw today, when pressure was really on Carson Wentz, he folded. And there's a coaching staff and people on that staff responsible for what's going on in Philadelphia. Jim Schwartz is apparently the easiest defensive coach in the NFL to scheme against because he doesn't disguise anything. And
I actually thought I thought the defense did a good job today.
Well, yeah, they stepped up late, and Darius Slay not being hurt was big for the Eagles. But so there's just a lot of turmoil that led me to believe Carson Wentz is not the quarterback everyone says he is.
I agree. I think we have to stop. I think Eagles fans, they love to – it's funny is Philly fans in general like to call out reporters for not being objective or for being easy. Mm-hmm. But they will never, ever – well, a lot of them will never criticize Carson Wentz. And it's so obvious that right now he's just not a good player.
The Eagles get blown out by 3 touchdowns in what was a horrible game, and there was no leadership, right?
Yeah.
And Carson Wentz, let's say he throws an interception or 2.
Yeah.
Everybody will blame the O-line, a wide receiver injury, a coach. Ben Simmons has a triple-double. The Sixers win a game. He locks up the opponent's best player, and people are still complaining he doesn't shoot the basketball.
Yeah.
It doesn't add up.
Yeah. The Joe Show Philly Sports Talk says Earth has 15 receptions for 130 yards in 3 games. I will admit this, as much as I proclaim to know about basketball, I have no knowledge of football really except what I see on a game-to-game basis. So I have no idea if 15 for 130 in 3 games is a good number. No? Okay. Didn't sound very good to me. No. I was sort of thinking it's kind of nice to see Carson is kind of getting comfortable passing to Deshaun Jackson because for a while it was he wouldn't pass to anybody who wasn't Zach Ertz. And now it's okay, he's kind of spreading the ball around a little bit. Fortunately, he's spreading it into the other team's cornerbacks, but that's a different story.
Too often.
Yeah, so that's also an issue. Kevin Keel, a guy who I actually work with for my day job, we go suffer through it together. He says Austin Krell hot seat. I am
Krell's on the hot seat.
Perennially on the hot seat. It's never been a day where the seat's been cold. Brian says, I think this is in reference to you, Brock. Timeout. When the pressure was on Carson, he folded. That was the only time he was actually good, leading them to the game-tying touchdown and then leading them into a field goal range twice in OT to only have false starts pushing them out of range. Brock, you can answer this question, and we got to move on to a different topic because this is a Sixers podcast.
No, I'll answer it briefly. The reason why I said he folded under pressure today is because this is the Cincinnati Bengals, and this is a week after you played the way you did against the Washington football team. So a team that's 0-2 needs to respond a lot better against the Cincinnati Bengals, and the fact that Carson Wentz was even in a position to have this game-tying touchdown and then ultimately going to overtime is because of how poorly they played offensively through the first three quarters. So it's Cincinnati. You didn't come out with a win. You came out with a tie in what was another ugly week offensively. So I saw him throwing his helmet. I didn't like some of the facial expressions he made after an interception.
Some of them. You didn't like some of them?
It was just really bad body language, in my opinion, today. So yeah. I think when the scrutiny and the pressure of the media was finally on him, we folded. Yeah. Go ahead.
One thing I want to say before we go actually move into the Sixers, because this is a Sixers podcast. I have been holding in pent-up rage, I guess, all week, maybe the last 2-3 weeks, because as it sort of comes set in stone that Gabe Kapler is probably going to get to the postseason in his first season as a Giants manager. And I have a lot of friends at WIP, so I don't want to like blast them for this, and they've been good to me over there as well. So it's like not right. I'll say I'm really glad that the Phillies listened to the callers of WIP, the 55, 60-year-old, 70-year-old hoagie mouth people who who can't pronounce names correctly when they were pissed about Gabe Kapler. I'm really glad that they were the ones that were listened to last season when it came time to blame somebody. The GM is a fraud, and the owner is a fraud, and I blame. I think obviously it would have been easy for Matt Klentak to write a check to JT Realmuto if he didn't have a luxury tax and an owner breathing down his neck that don't want to pay. But I can't blame Middleton for Klentak's complete neglect of a major league caliber bullpen this season. And it was comically bad. If they were just the worst bullpen in baseball by like a fraction of an earned run, or if they were like by like one earned run, they would be in the postseason today. They're not just the worst baseball. They're not just the worst bullpen in baseball by a little bit, but by a wide margin. Yeah. And they lost. I couldn't tell you how many games they lost this season that they led, or that they could have won because of the bullpen. And there wasn't just like 1 and 2 run games where it was like a bloop and a blast, or a couple balls that were just lazy fly balls out of reach. They blew a 5-run lead to the Blue Jays in the last inning of play. They blew countless 3-run leads, all because of the bullpen. And it's not because the guys that he picked up were supposed to be good and weren't. It was because he completely just said, "I'm going to live with this bullpen," and it was laughably terrible. And I'm glad the team gave up on him today, because he deserves to be out of this franchise and out of baseball, quite frankly, because he's a horrible GM. And I hope McPhail is out too, because this fan base deserves a lot better. And they're just not an enjoyable franchise to watch the last couple of years. I think the 2 years ago, before they got Bryce Harper, was the most fun I've had watching the Phillies in, I would say, 6-7 years. So it's actually been less fun watching them with Bryce Harper.
You can't even say it's because the expectations of winning are higher now, because there really haven't been expectations in the past 2 years of Philadelphia Phillies winning. I mean, I have people that Philadelphia is either on brink of making the playoffs and they're not even going to make the playoffs. So you can't even blame that phantom enjoyment on the expectations of winning not being there. They just suck.
Yeah. No, it's painful, and it's remarkable. I think one thing for me that I find so wild is there are teams like the Giants, teams. Let's see here, like the Marlins, I guess to an extent. There are teams within Major League Baseball that in the 9 years that the Phillies haven't made the playoffs, they have built up, won World Series, fallen to the bottom, rebuilt, and are now back in the playoffs. And the Phillies are still recovering from a postseason appearance in 2011. So I mean, it's remarkable how they've acted. Like I never really understood what it was like to never really understood what it was like to have a team miss on every front at every possible time. Like I never really thought that it would be a situation where you're like the Mariners, where you haven't made the playoffs 20 years, but this Phillies team has actually made the wrong decision at every single turn. They've failed to develop players. They've failed to choose the right players. They've failed the managerial front. They've failed at the front office level. Across the board, they have failed, and this is 9 years running. And it's like a perennial thing where it's like, okay, I heard my elders or my mom and dad or my uncles or whatever talk about like a team that not where it was for years they were garbage and then they finally got to the playoffs. And I was like, that must have sucked. Can't relate. Now it's like, no, this is what that feels like. Where it's like every year you're like the Cleveland Indians from Major League, the movie. Now let's let's move over to this is a good quote from Girardi, just came out on the Phillies GM Matt Klentak. I love working with him, which basically means see ya.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
I enjoy that. Let's go over to the Sixers. It looks like the 22 minutes into a Sixers podcast, and we're finally talking about the Sixers.
Yeah.
It looks like things are sort of coming to a slow conclusion. It's kind of like a yellow light at an intersection right now. Today, Keith Pompey comes out with an article saying that they've all fallen into grace with Mike D'Antoni, and Joel likes the whole idea of facing up on the perimeter and 5 out, and Tobias is going to go to the 4. And I see everyone like on Twitter speculating what is this about? How's this going to work? I guess D'Antoni's the guy. And I want to tweet out you're so close. Just actually think for 2 seconds. You almost have it. It's on the tip of your tongue. It's like your brain's getting 95% of the way there, and you're just not getting all the way there. It's a leverage play. It's a leverage play. The guy that they want is Ty Lue. They want Tyronn Lue to be the next head coach of the franchise, and they're trying to bring down his asking price. Because what happened was 2 weeks ago when Billy Donovan signed his deal, he gets 3 4 years, 24 mil? I think it was 424.
Yeah.
So Ty Lue comes into play, and he's like, whoa, wait a minute. This guy had Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, couldn't win a title. He blew a 3-1 lead to the Warriors. I've won a title. I've coached LeBron. I've won it that as a player and as a coach in the NBA. Players are going to relate to me better than they can relate to him. If he gets 424, I want 535. Is what that conversation looks like. So they're trying to bring that asking price down, and it's very obvious to me. I don't want to throw this out there, but I have a story that I have lined up for either scenario that I've gotten some good details on.
Okay.
So Brian and I have been working behind the scenes on that story, and it's in the drafts. But it's I think like Elton Brand said, it's all going to make sense soon. But I'll tell you this: I think even if you have a scenario where regardless of who they hire and regardless of what they put out towards the public, I think the coach that they hire, it's going to be the first crack in the armor for the future of Embiid and Simmons together. Because from the information that I've gathered, it's pretty clear that they're on different pages with regards to who they would like as coach. And the whole reason that this is taking so long to make a decision and to get interviews and to hire is because the team's trying to do some counseling behind closed doors in a sense where they're like, I know you don't like him, but how about him? Can we get you guys to both like this guy? How about that guy? So that's sort of where I think they are right now, is trying to get the players on the same page.
All right, that's pretty interesting because I wasn't thinking that at all.
What were you thinking?
I had thought, all right, so the Clippers just recently got eliminated in what was a really underwhelming season. So even if you're going to go to hire Ty Lue, you have to wait until the Clippers lose. So the Clippers get eliminated, and I don't know if Philadelphia is going to make that announcement in the midst of two series going on, whether it be Denver and the Lakers or Boston, Miami. And Mike D'Antoni was recently exited from the bubble as well. I honestly, what I think is happening right now is that they're trying to align a trade based upon – I think they're going to make trades regardless of who's at coach, but I think they're going to try to align a trade or two first based upon who they're going to go with at coach. And if that falls through, then they make the instant hire. But this has to be within a very short and the same time frame. So what I think that might happen is you have maybe Joel Embiid with Mike D'Antoni playing face to the basket, right? Let's say you have Ben Simmons as well. And I guess if Tobias Harris is mentioned and D'Antoni intends to use him at the 4, let's say that he's on this team for the sake of this argument. I think Philadelphia tries to go after Chris Paul or Drew Holiday as like a primary ball handler or a primary playmaker. So Mike D'Antoni can utilize them for the pick and roll in his offense if he does implement that pick and roll. And I mean, roll men have always had success in his offense. They usually run a high frequency of pick and roll. That's what happened when he departed from Philadelphia. Houston goes from bottom 10 to top 10 in the next 2 years in ball handler points in the pick and roll. So I assume Philadelphia tries to get one of them. If they can't line that up, then I think they decide who they truly want to go with a head coach. But I think what might be happening right now behind closed doors is lining these deals up. I mean, right now, from what you've just said, it does kind of seem like Ben Simmons and his camp is preferring the Ty Lue hire because the ties with Clutch and everybody in that family. And on the other side, Joel Embiid, I've seen, has publicly given the green light and approved of Mike D'Antoni. So I can see why you may be speculating that. And if you've sources behind it, then listen, power be to you, Austin. But right now, I think I'm going to take the more simpler route. I'm going to say Philadelphia's management might be trying to align some trades right now.
So,
and the trades can't happen for what, 2 more weeks? Is it?
I've been trying to find information on like the moratorium period and how that works, and I just can't find anything like concrete. And all of it's like outdated like by a couple of months. So I'm not sure if the rules have changed, and I don't want to put like uninformed. I'd rather put nothing out there about like about those dates than put something out that's incorrect. Because at least then I can act like I knew about it all along. I didn't.
You won't be on the hot seat for that.
Exactly. The last thing I need is a hotter seat. Now, so like, let me say this: if I had to, if you had it on FanDuel right now, like who the Sixers' first call would be if they hired Mike D'Antoni, I would put a lot of money on the on that first call going to the Sacramento Kings for Buddy Hield. I am very confident that it would be Buddy Hield would be the first call they would, Sacramento would be the first call they'd make. Now, I think what they're trying to do is they're just trying to get everybody on the same page. Really, is what I think comes down to it. But I also think that they're trying to negotiate and bring Lue's price down, which is obviously just about money because it doesn't count against salary cap. So it isn't like you're trying to fit things within the salary cap it's that they're just trying to that they're just trying to like be cheap, which is so on brand for this franchise.
Yeah, sounds just like Philadelphia.
Yeah. So that's all I have on that for now, and I think the decision's gonna take a couple of weeks. I'd say maybe
Yeah.
not a couple of weeks, but like maybe like a day to a week. No, a week to 2 weeks is what I would say.
So
Um,
let me ask you real quick. So you already said you think Ty Lue is probably like a 5-year guy, right? That's what he'll expect from a team.
Yeah.
And that's been reported. What does a Mike D'Antoni contract look like? Is that a 2-year contract? I mean, you'd figure if he goes Indiana, Philadelphia, it won't be that long of a commitment because of his age, right?
I would think it would be like a 2 to 3 year deal.
Yeah.
2 to 3 years. I think he even said like I want to coach like 2 or 3 more years.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this, like I want to give him credit for like he has adapted his offense as time has gone on. Even if it's just like a little bit, if you go back and you watch some things, yeah, it's true. His offense has adapted as time has gone on.
Yeah.
It doesn't make him a great coach. It doesn't make him a bad coach either. But I think his lack of defensive emphasis, the lack of defensive emphasis he's had in the past might be able to get like watered down or like I guess alleviated here because you have a premier defensive wing in Ben Simmons, a theoretically elite defensive rim protector in Joel Embiid. So maybe that can sort of balance it out.
Okay.
But I think if you're looking for the best head coach for the job, it's going to be Ty Lue. And everyone's like these are the best candidates they can find. Like, I got news for you. There's a reason that they're the best candidates you can find is because they're the ones that are available. The best candidates you can find are currently still in the bubble playing basketball for the most part. So you know, and they're not gonna be like, oh, we went and like found this guy and the corner office and in Memphis's front, like Memphis's coaching staff. Like no, they're not gonna like put a very fragile situation in the hands of a guy who's never experienced the coaching position. Now, so I think it's take some more time, but I do think that it will ultimately be Ty Lue. Of course, I'll get old takes exposed for this if I'm wrong. Which I mean, let me have at it, but whatever. So in other Sixers news, we have a child of the process.
Yes, sir.
Arthur Embiid. Were you surprised by that? I was kind of like, I remember like last summer it was something that like someone had like speculated that Ann DePaula was pregnant, but it was like I guess disproven or proven incorrect, something like that. I don't know, but 9 months later, I mean, here we are.
I'm happy for Joel. I love that he named his kid after his brother, his late brother.
Yeah.
Rest in paradise to his late brother. I'm happy for Joe, and I think that's exactly how it should be. When I found out that Joe was having a child, I was just as surprised as everyone else. And I think in this sports landscape where the media can be really invasive, it's very important to your life and your personal life as private as you can. Make sure you keep your reality separate from what's happening on the court and in the locker room. I kind of equate that to like J. Cole. J. Cole's been rapping for years on end, right? About women, maybe about this and that, and the whole time he's had a woman his whole life that he's been with, and he would have never known. So you gotta keep your real life aside from what's happening on the court and in the locker room. He did that successfully. They have a child. Congratulations to them. And what I can say now is that Joel Embiid is going to be a monster. You don't want to trade Joel Embiid. You don't want to trade Ben Simmons, but more specifically now, more than ever, you don't trade Joel Embiid because now he's going to have that father strength. Jason Tatum, he's becoming a young legend. He's got a kid, Deuce. Fred VanVleet turned into a killer. He went from undrafted to a killer when he hit a chance. So these dudes turn into fathers, and they get 10-plus attributes in every category. So Joel Embiid, I fully anticipate top 3 in MVP voting next year. You can stay it.
What are we waiting for? Why don't we just become fathers? It's like
Well,
everything.
you said it, not me. You said it, not me. I'm not in any rush. You're talking about washed up. You're feeling.
Listen,
I'm not in any rush. That's all you.
Listen, someday you'll get there, Brock, and I'll get there too, I guess. But I wonder if this is gonna like change how Joel, like his outlook next season, because like he'll probably be. I wonder if they'll like bring Arthur to the games, because like I would not want to surround Arthur with Philly fans. It just like let him remain pure and unruined. Let him stay like like innocent. But I wonder if like Joel's gonna rediscover that joy that he lost, because he's now a father, and because like it's sort of like it's not all about playing basketball. Now it's like he has like an out to it. He has somebody he can go home to and just play with, and that kid doesn't care if he wins or loses. If he wins or loses, Jesus. But I do wonder like if maybe we see like a reinvigorated him next year. Go Birds says, "What's up, Krell? What's going on, man?" Or woman, good lady. Good. Thanks for checking. Thanks for tuning in. Brock, didn't say hi to you. I wonder what you did to score in Go Birds.
Maybe you're 24. You're looking for a wife and child. Maybe that's your calling right there. That's what's up to feel my Curry from that.
Oh man. So let's go to Lakers Nuggets. LeBron closes that game out last night, and I don't say the Lakers close it out. I say LeBron closed it out because he was unbelievable in that fourth quarter. Is there anything like him closing out a playoff game or playoff series?
Right now, no. I mean, he's what, 16 of his last 17 in elimination games. This is his 10th NBA final. He's been in the NBA finals every season since 2011, aside from last year with the injury in the hobbled Lakers squad. But LeBron James is this generation's GOAT, man. And I feel like I definitely take LeBron for granted. That's something I'm kind of ashamed to admit, but it's the truth. I grew up with LeBron, and I think I've just been so accustomed to his greatness that I don't want to say I never cared, but it's just the standard. It's what you expect. So his whole career, you almost root against him if you're not a LeBron fan, just because you want to see some difference, maybe a different team winning or a player dethroning him. You like to root for the opposite, but you only do that and you only hate him like that because of how good he is. And he's the best basketball player on the planet right now. LeBron James is as good as they make them. I mean, he impacts the game in every single way you possibly can. And he's a killer. He locks in and he's a killer. There's nobody like him in the world. And after the game, what the coolest thing was that LeBron just took his slides off. He was chilling behind everybody in the post game. He's just sitting on the ground because he's been here before. He's in finals every year. So he knows until it's a finals championship, it's worth nothing. And this year there's even more implications because it's the same path Kobe Bryant had, I believe, in 2011 or whatever year it was, a very similar path. So LeBron knows that, and he's the lion. He's just hunting his prey right now.
Yeah, I love how people on Twitter are like, there's that picture of him sitting like the legs crossed, whatever it is, and they're like, he's so locked in right now, like yada yada. I'm like, dude, he's 35. He just put up 38 points, 16 rebounds, and 10 assists. Maybe he's just fucking exhausted. He just played.
LeBron's different. There is no exhaustion.
Like, come on, what are we doing here? I feel like the introduction of social media has ruined our ability to appreciate LeBron, because now it's like so diluted with like people just trying to have takes, like trolls, journalists that are pushing a narrative, that kind of thing. And I wonder if like we would have appreciated him more back in the 90s. I think we would have.
I think LeBron is LeBron. I think wherever he's playing, he's going to get appreciated. I agree with the first part of your statement with social media, but at the same time, that kind of enhances his figure. It makes him even larger than life. His following and everything that he touches just goes viral. But I'm taking a class beyond the field of sports storytelling right now, where we're learning about like how important the media is, and yet despite how important the media is, there's a lot of media outlets and a lot of people working for media outlets that are portraying these athletes in certain ways, or they're manipulating narratives, or they're reporting things inaccurately, or they're taking things out of context, or they're asking baity questions. It's just they're doing everything they can to make the player look bad publicly.
Who are you referring to, and why is it me?
It's not a person, but I've been a media studies production major for 3 years now, so we learn a lot about media.
Are you a junior?
Yeah, I'm a junior.
What the fuck? Where did time fly? I remember I met you when you were like a sophomore.
Yeah, honestly, it's been going quick. It's scary, but I'm making the most of it. That's one thing I can say.
Yeah. So I agree with you. And speaking of media and people trying to like be taking narratives and stuff like that, Skip Bayless says this championship for LeBron, like it would be like he'd be an overachieving Miami Heat team. It would be like an easy championship. I actually think it would be arguably the hardest the most difficult that he's won. I think this is going to be more difficult than the Cleveland one, considering you have a stop and start type of season. You have to play entire playoffs in neutral court per se. Everyone's on the same amount of time of rest essentially once the series begins. There's no travel, and I think this is probably not as good of a team as he had in Cleveland when they won. Like their second best player is Anthony Davis, and that's a damn good second player. But what?
It's the best one he's ever had.
Yeah. But then the drop off to the next best player is
the point guard who looks like you, Alex Caruso.
Quite dramatic. The drop off is quite dramatic. So I think it'd be the hardest.
Yeah. So when I saw this question in the Google Doc, I didn't really know how to answer it. Like, do I go back and look at the adversities LeBron faced in previous finals? The 3-1 comes to mind. An uphill battle against Golden State seems like probably the most difficult finals. But I think this shouldn't be compared in terms of difficulty or ease. It's just different. This is an unprecedented time. So in mid-season, essentially, for these guys, or when they're getting ready to gear up for the playoffs, there's a huge stop and start. Now, I don't want to use the Kobe Bryant death as an excuse, but that weighed on players and specifically players in Los Angeles and players that were close with Kobe Bryant. So that weighs on a guy like LeBron James when you lose a brother like that. So there's that. There's the stop and start. You have everything going on socially. So LeBron speaking out, using his platform, trying to encourage other players to speak out, meeting with the players union, everything like that. Not to mention, this is year 17 for LeBron James. He's not moving like Ja Morant anymore. He's moving like a grown man. His body responds like he's a grown man, and he's been doing it for almost 20 years now. So I don't want to rank this in terms of ease or difficulty, but it's probably the most different journey he's ever had to the finals. And I'm rooting for LeBron to cap it off with a championship here. That would be written in the stars. So I'm hoping LeBron can pull that out.
You might be shocked, but I'm also hoping for LeBron to win a championship. For different reasons, though.
LeBron needs to win for the culture.
Jesus Christ. Here we go. Culture. So I do want to not just neglect the Nuggets. I think, I guess, as painful as losing in a conference finals probably is for a fan base in a small market like Denver, I think they have a lot to be excited about and a lot to be happy about. I think that team, first of all, that core is super young. They're all like in the same age range, kind of. Jokic is, I think, 25. Jamal is 23.
Yep.
MPJ is 20. I think 21.
Or yeah, 21.
Okay, so they're all like under the age 26. they're going to be right there in the West for the next 4 or 5 years, assuming they're all extended and they're all, that core remains. They're going to be there for a while. And I think they're like one knockdown shooter away from basically, and like another backup big, because Lord knows Plumlee just is not good enough. And maybe like not overpaying Paul Millsap. Yeah. So, but I think they're right there. I think they are right there, and they're going to be top 3 in the West for the foreseeable future.
Hey, you owe Jamal Murray an apology, because 2 or 3 episodes ago you told me he wasn't a superstar, or he couldn't be a superstar. We had that discussion.
I didn't say he couldn't, because he's definitely the prototype for a superstar in today's NBA.
Yeah.
I said I needed to see more than one playoff performance, or like one playoff year to buy it. But I mean, what he did in these playoffs was not only sustained, but it was the same level of difficulty game in, game out.
Yeah.
So I am not eating crow yet on Jamal Murray, but I will gladly if the time comes.
Okay.
Do you think he'll be an all-star in the West ever?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look,
so?
Jamal Murray is 23 years old.
Okay,
so
yeah, true.
He's as young as they make him.
But you have Book, you have Ja, you have who else in the West?
We got a lot. You got to remember Clay,
D'Lo,
remember Curry, D'Lo potentially. I mean, the West is loaded. It's loaded, but you just kind of alluded to it. Denver has this really good core.
Yeah,
right? Mike Malone is a player's coach.
So if they win like 57 games and they're like leading the way, by the time All-Star voting comes around, they'll probably get 2 in. So they'll probably get 2 in. Yeah.
So here's what you have in Denver. You've got Jamal Murray, 23, under contract for 5 more years. Nikola Jokic, 25, under contract for 3 more seasons plus the bird rights. MPJ is actually 22, but he's making less than $5 million a year until 2021.
Huge.
And from what Denver got in Porter from this season alone, it looks like he's going to be worth way more than $5 million a season. And his ceiling is as high as Kevin Durant, according to some people. So if Michael Porter can blossom into anything close to what people think he will be, and I think he will, that's huge for Denver. Now, Will Barton has 1 more season before his player option, so you get Will Barton for $13 million, in my opinion. That's an underpayment for a guy like Will Barton, who's still relatively young. Gary Harris is only 26, so you get 2 more years out of him. And they have a young core of players that they've really built through their pipeline. Bol, Torrey Craig, Monty Morris. So they have an eye for talent. They have a good system where they can develop players, and I think it's only going to get better for Denver. Now, Paul Millsap is off the books, no longer $33 million a year, so they're going to have a little bit of money to spend. And Austin, I agree with you. If you can get a guy that can play occasional defense but offensively can really give you knockdown shooting and move off ball and take things like the DHO, at least better than Gary Harris can, Denver's set. So they have assets to trade. They have good culture. They have a good system, and they're going to be good for a while. This playoff run, it's one big moral victory, but if you ask me, this is a moral victory to be proud about. This is the one exception.
Yeah, for sure. So going off of that, so like I think the hard decision they have coming up is what to do with Jeremy Grant if he opts out of his deal, of course.
He plans to. There's a report today. He plans to, and I think a league executive anticipates like in the range of 14 to 17 annually over several years, which I think is an underpayment, honestly.
It might be an underpayment. It might be, but you also have to keep in mind that you're going to eventually have to pay MPJ.
Yeah.
So that, and I'm not sure if they extended Jokic yet.
Yeah, he's got 3 more seasons.
Okay.
They gave him like 147, I think.
Okay, so you're going to have to extend MPJ, and you're going to want to. You're probably going to want to clear the deck for that because I think that's going to be it. If my eyes don't deceive me, that's going to be a max extension. And so, going off of like something that I've emphasized recently and really over the course of this entire season, and especially with their talent evaluation and development that they've shown, I think the difficult decision that needs to be made is letting Jeremy Grant walk. And I say that because I think you can replenish that value in the draft with second round picks or with late first round picks, whatever you got. I mean, there's no question he's incredibly valuable to what they did this season. But I think if you're looking at the core and you're thinking of, okay, what is our three-headed monster? That's not Jeremy Grant. There's kind of a ceiling as to what he can be.
Mm-hmm.
I think you got to make sure all money is free for when it comes time to sign Michael Porter Jr. So if I'm them, I'm probably going to let him walk.
Yeah, I think based upon his market, he'll probably have a pretty high market value, and because of that, Denver is ultimately going to let him walk. And like I said, they probably want to get they have Will Barton for $13 million for another year. They'll probably want to get that money off of the books and distribute it in a different way. But they're really going to feel the loss of Grant because he's this multi-positional defensive player where he can guard 1 through 5 essentially. And on offense, he does all of the little things that really help teams go on runs. And you talk about dependability. He's played 80 games in 3 of the last 4 seasons. So he definitely earned his value. He's playing valuable minutes. And in comparison to some of the other guys making money right now, like Jeremy Grant made $9 million this season. There's guys like Otto Porter, Andrew Wiggins, Hassan Whiteside. They all walk themselves into deals where they're making $27 million a year.
If you're paying Hassan Whiteside $27 million, oh my Lord.
And Bazemore, Jeff Teague, Evan Turner, they're all making $19 million a year. So I think if the salary cap is affected by COVID, which I guess it will be, then that drives Jeremy Grant's market down a little bit. But I think he's the type of player where you could give him $20 to $22 million annually and be okay with it just because of what he gives you offensively and defensively. But I think if you look at Denver's blueprint, he is expendable. You can replace that.
Yeah. So let's go over to the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat. Game 6, I guess, is upon us in the next hour or so. It's just about 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
That game's upon us. One thing that I kind of find incredible, it speaks volumes to Miami's preparation and their coaching. And Charles Barkley said it last night, and so did Kenny Smith. The defense should not be this hard to beat, the zone should not be this hard to beat. And yet, their zone is every rotation's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's on time. It's in the right spot. It's in sync every single possession, and it's giving a team with shooters like the Boston Celtics a lot of trouble, and it's making them, think twice about their next move. And I think that the fact that the Miami Heat in today's NBA can trot out a zone defense as prolifically and as consistently as they do on a game-to-game basis, and that the Celtics are struggling to game plan for it and adjust to it, I think it's an incredible endorsement of your coaching staff.
Yeah, the Heat have done a phenomenal job in this playoff series, really trying everything. I mean, they've gone 2 threes, they've gone 3 twos, they've put their bigs at the top. And even last game, it was funny watching. Boston came out and they were ready for this zone, and Miami didn't even play a zone. So Boston had prepared for the zone. Miami doesn't play zone. Boston struggles a little bit. And then Miami goes to zone, and Boston was prepared to go against it, and Boston cracked that game open, and they eventually win. But I think Miami, they're daring, and they're trying a lot of things defensively, and it's really been a chess match in the East for Miami, for Toronto, for Boston, and it's been really fun to watch because I'm a defensive guy. The thing about Miami, which I talked about a few weeks ago with you, that I really like when they play zone is that they all move on a string kind of, and that they're all one cohesive unit. If one player moves, 4 react, and they're always reacting, whether it be closing out in the corners or playing help, adding cushion. They're just doing a lot. So I like what they're doing defensively. And Austin, I know you're going to talk a little bit about Daniel Tice, but Daniel Tice even is a player that adjusted to these zones, and that if Boston's going to be throwing out these high screens and Miami's going to be playing 2-3, what can Tice do if he can't post up and he can't shoot the ball? Well, he can set a high screen, he can roll to the mid-range, and he can hit shots there. So the mid-range is not just dead yet. Daniel Tice is hitting shots there. LeBron is hitting shots there. Kawhi hit shots there. So the mid-range has been a good tool for some players in this postseason.
Yeah, for sure. And what's funny is, getting back to one thing, the Phillies, Bryce Harper on JT Realmuto says, I mean, he needs to be our catcher next year. When asked about Matt Klentak, Bryce says, I'm glad I'm not the owner. I don't have to make those difficult decisions.
That's what I would say. It's not my problem.
That's exactly what you mean when you say, I don't want him back. I don't want him in my line of vision ever again.
He just looks like a little, I don't know. Whenever I see him, he just looks like a little guy. Guy making his baseball calls.
Oh, man. Let's talk about Tyler Herro, because what he did the other night was pretty incredible. And I think another thing that is just like a hint of what the Miami Heat do with their structure is like, that was a guy who, coming out, you were thought like, okay, this guy's going to be like JJ Redick if he's lucky. Tyler Herro is taking guys off the dribble. He's finishing off the wrong foot. He's finishing off with the offhand. He's taking step back jumpers. He's taking pull up jumpers. He's creating an offense. He's splitting a pick and roll and getting to the rim at will. They have empowered him and instilled a confidence in him that I don't know that any other team would have gotten out of him. And that display the other night against the Celtics was truly incredible, and it's a testament to their development. And look at me, like, endorsing the Miami Heat. I'm like, I want to like vomit, but I have to be fair and be just and be objective. Yeah. And what that performance the other night was a very, very, very high endorsement of what the Miami Heat do, and it's really incredible to watch his play, because not only I think his floor would be JJ Redick at this point, not his ceiling, his floor. Yeah. And I think he is the type of guy who you're like, we can start him at the 2, switch him over to the 1, play him small at a 3, and basically like have this like Swiss Army knife type of guy who, by the way, has all-star level potential, I think. Yep. And so I don't know what his ceiling is. I mean, I remember I read somewhere that someone said that he can be better than Booker. Okay. I think it was on Zach Lowe's podcast. Dan Le Batard said that he think he can be better than Book. Which, I mean, what are they going to say? Of course they're going to say that they want to empower their players. Like, still, like, let's relax here a little bit. But at the 14th pick, at the 14th pick, that's a home run.
I mean, Ty's been a killer. He's been a killer since high school. He's been saying it with his chest since high school. He was cold as hell back then. Kentucky has a rich history with guards, and I think he's just another one of those guards that's going to dominate in the NBA. The thing about Ty is that he can take guys off of the dribble. He's really nice dribbling. He can come around screens, and talk about maximizing talent. What Miami's doing is unparalleled right now. They're using the DHO almost as if it's like a moving screen, but it's not. Your guy receiving off the DHO is running full speed, hitting the spot, and there's a defender a foot behind him because he can't keep up, can't get around the screen. So I don't know what to call it. It's like some sort of moving screen, but it's just working to perfection. The DHO for Duncan and Ty, and even when Duncan's cold, Ty can step up. He's a guy that's been really efficient off of the bench when he's starting, even more efficient. He makes a lot of his shots from the field. He's a good three-point shooter, and he's smart. He's got good basketball IQ. He's comfortable, and I'd argue right now he's probably the most dangerous Miami Heat player with the final shot. That's not a knock on Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler takes that shot every time. Wow. Jimmy Butler takes that shot every time. I will go to Jimmy Butler with that shot every time. But speaking with Miami right now, Jay Crowder is cold as ice.
They need him to get hot. Or else
they need him to get hot. Goran's not been doing too well shooting that 3-ball. Jimmy hasn't shot that 3-ball well in the past 2 games. So right now, Ty might be your guy if you're trying to get a bucket.
Yeah. So game 6 is upon us. Do the Celtics force Game 7?
If Miami continues to struggle shooting the 3-ball tonight, then yeah, Boston forces Game 7. Yes.
You know me. I'm someone who's not afraid of an opinion, and
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I have absolutely no feel. I have no idea where this game goes. I think they're two very, very evenly matched teams. I just have no feel.
The interest seems peaked in the NBA right now. I don't know why. I've seen a lot of people lose interest. I've seen people say that it's been tough for them to watch basketball. It's probably because the NFL is back, but I don't know. The interest seems pretty peaked, and a couple of people I know a couple of people saw that Boston-Miami game with me the other night. It was a tough game to watch. Boston-Miami couldn't hit a shot. There was no heart. It was an ugly ball game.
Yeah. Who would you rather the finals matchup be?
Well, on TNT Players Only, Shaq said that the Lakers want the Heat.
Yeah.
Somebody told him the Lakers want the Heat. He's not.
The Heat Twitter is already locked and loaded. Like, oh, you wanted the Miami Heat? Okay.
I'm going with Shaq's gut here. I guess the Lakers. I think the Lakers would kill Boston. I don't think that would be entertaining.
Yeah.
I think Miami can give them a game or two. So I'd rather see Miami in the finals.
But you think the Lakers win no matter what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Miami could quietly give the Lakers a run, but I'm not declaring that. I think the Lakers win the finals.
I think if Boston makes it, I think the Lakers win in 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
If the Heat win, I wouldn't be surprised if the Miami Heat won the title.
Won how many? 2?
Won the title.
Won the title.
The whole
wow.
thing. Better shooters. They have a capable big that can kind of keep up and handle Anthony Davis. It's going to be how they defend LeBron, and I don't know who I'd choose officially at this point, but I don't think it would be a lopsided thing where it's like okay, slay the dragon. Like I think it would be like, okay, now let's sit here and really discuss and analyze this matchup because this is actually a pretty good matchup.
Well,
go ahead.
It's like, all right, so Anthony Davis has taken essentially as many shots as Kawhi and Bron in this playoff series. He's making almost 60% of them. He's gone to the line more than anybody in the league. He's 6th most in steals and 3rd most in blocks. So when I look at that, it's like you've got one guy out there who's imposing his will more than any player on the court, although he's not rebounding. And then you got LeBron James, who is, like I said, a lion. He's a killer. So in the playoffs, it's a superstar game. I don't think Miami will beat the Lakers, but I mean, I forget what I saw. Isn't it like the last players that have come back from 3-1 leads have blown it in the next time they're in the finals or something? I forget what I saw. I'd have to find it. But I don't know. So, who knows? Basketball completely broke my expectations this season. The Clippers get eliminated. OKC makes the playoffs. The Sixers are the most disappointing team in the league. There's a bubble.
I don't know. Are the Sixers most disappointing? It might be the Clippers now. Clippers might have taken that title.
I mean, the Clippers' expectations were definitely higher than the Sixers. The Clippers' expectations were definitely higher. So, yeah, they blew a 3-1 lead. That's pretty tough. That's a tough look for your organization. But Kawhi dropped off the Sixers the year before, so I guess it kind of evens out.
Not really, because it's a different organization. All right, I think we're done for the night. Brock, any parting shots before we wrap it up?
No parting shots, but here's the deal. I've been working on a Mike D'Antoni video.
Okay.
I had it over the weekend. I've been adding stuff to it. Today I had a little bit of extra work for school, so it's going to be out on Monday. It'll be out tomorrow.
Zoom University. He's Brock Landis. You can find him on Twitter at Landis Brock. Watch his great videos. They are very entertaining. I'm Austin Krell TPL on Twitter. You can find me breaking your favorite NBA news always. Mm-hmm. As always, thank you for tuning into the Feed to Embiid. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on Apple Pods, leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Take care, everybody. Happy Sunday. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Feed to Embiid.